Hi folks, Matt Easton here. So there are a couple of things which are not widely recognised or not widely acknowledged or mentioned in regards to tulwars. Okay, the first of those is that very often, especially in the 18th century and to some degree in the 19th century as well, the blades on tulwars are not Indian, they are European. So there are lots of 18th and 19th century tulwars, and it goes back to the 17th century in fact, which do have European blades on them. Now sometimes we see a type of Kandar hilted straight bladed sword with a backsword blade on, and these are often referred to as Ferengi or Ferengi. No Star Trek references there at all, but Ferengi literally just means foreign. Okay, so I'm somewhat dubious in modern arms collecting terms. You often see a certain type of straight-bladed Indian sword referred to as a Ferengi. I'm not sure that that type of sword was ever called a Ferengi. Ferengi just means foreign. It just means it's got a foreign blade. Well, on that basis, we could call lots of curved tulwars Ferengi as well, because many curved tulwars actually have European blades on them. And particularly in Germany, in Solingen, there were blade manufacturers who churned out both straight backsword blades, double-edged broadsword blades, and indeed curved sort of falchion-ish or sabre-like blades, and exported them all over the world. The double-edged blades were used on Indian pata swords. They're the so-called gauntlet swords that were used particularly I think in the 17th and 18th century in India. You get the curved sabre type blades were utilised all across Eastern Europe as well. In fact, a lot of Polish and Hungarian sabres actually have German blades on them, and indeed lots of Indian tulwars, and really the tulwar being defined more by the hilt than by the blade, had these European made blades on them. And indeed the backsword blades on the so-called Ferengi type swords were used as well, and they're pretty much identical to the backsword blades you find on British and German basket hilted backswords. It's just that they're put on an Indian hilt. And Indian hilts, as I've mentioned in previous videos, are generally glued with a type of pitch, type of tar, type, very hard, very strong sort of gum-based adhesive. They're glued onto the tang, so it's an easy process to get an imported blade and glue it onto your native hilt. Sometimes they're pinned at the end as well. Sometimes they have a pin through either through the handle or through the langets. So that's the first thing. The first thing is that lots of Indian and indeed Eastern European blades came from Western Europe, and particularly Germany. In the 19th century you also get tulwars that actually have British-made blades on, most famously the 1796 so-called light cavalry sabre, or also known as the dragoon sabre. Often those blades were dismounted, the hilts were taken off them, the European style hilts were taken off, and a tulwar hilt was added onto them. In some cases the blades are reshaped slightly and certainly sharpened better, but nevertheless they were used on tulwar hilts. And often in regards to the 1796 light cavalry sabre, you see the assertion that it was inspired by the Indian tulwar. I don't really think this is true at all. I think it was actually inspired by Eastern European, Hungarian and Polish sabre blades in fact, and Austrian blades, because many British swords at that time were inspired by Austrian cavalry doctrine. But ironically, the 1796 blade was used on tulwars, so in a way you could say actually the 1796 influenced tulwars, because the quality of the steel was very recognised in India, and they thought they were good blades, so they reused them. And in fact the company Mole of Birmingham, Robert Mole and Sons of Birmingham, they actually made entire tulwars, hilt and everything, and shipped those out to the India, to the Indian stores deposit, and to basically be issued out to Indian cavalry units, okay, serving obviously under British rule. So that's the first thing. The first thing is that lots of tulwar blades are in fact, rather than tulwar, Indian sword blades are in fact European made. Both German and British, sometimes other things as well. Very occasionally you see a French blade on a tulwar hilt as well. But the other fact is that people often talk about tulwars only talking about the curved type. And the other thing to mention is that tulwars sometimes come, there's a typical tulwar hilt pretty much, sometimes come with straight blades, and this is a straight double-edged blade. Now as it happens, I believe that this blade is a European-made blade. However, you do get native-made, Indian-made straight blades as well, and you get wavy-bladed, straight-bladed ones. So, and of course we know that they use straight blades on pata and kanda and other types of Indian sword. So in actual fact you can find straight blades and curved blades in India and in fact all over Asia. So there we go, two kind of, I suppose, minor mythbusters. One, that Indians only used curved blades. Of course they didn't. Indians and in fact Persians as well used, and Afghans used straight and curved blades, and that the blades were somehow of a different quality or differently made in India. In actual fact, many of the blades in India were European made. Thank you.